One of the things I wanted to close with is 1982. I went, being a big drunk and all that stuff, I finally decided to do something about it. So I go on top of this mountain. Did anybody ever see Powell Highway? Remember that big chubby guy? He goes up on top of that mountain. He puts a candy bar up on top. Well, if you look kind of a little ways over there, that's where I was standing at when I was fasting up there for 4 days and 4 nights without food or water. When I was up there one morning, I think it was the 4th morning, I was on the other side of the mountain where the sun was coming up. I was saying my opening prayers. And when you have 4 days and 4 nights without food or water, they said you start going crazy, you have hallucinations and all that stuff, your body's getting weak and all that stuff. I saw a woman dancing up there on the east side of the, right where the sun was coming up. Somebody told me through one of those ceremonies that means a woman that is dressed in orange. Z is yellow, Sha is red. Combine both of them. Those of you that went to elementary and dabbled in colors, you combine that, it becomes orange. So if you notice early in the morning when you go out there, you see the haze that's coming up. There's an orange haze, and that is the care and the hope and compassion that women give us. I have abused women. I have psychologically hurt them. That's part of my past. Even when I was married, I went out on them. And I always blamed my dysfunctional marriages on me. And I was going to write a book on how not to be married, and here I got remarried again. So that didn't work. But I do remember that story about that woman who was dancing, because I saw that woman and I was looking at her, and she was danced as a shawl dancer. She had a beautiful shawl and she was dancing, and I was looking at her as I had my sacred instrument, the pipe, and I was looking at her, and all of a sudden she became nothing. And I went back down, went into a sweat lodge when they came after me, and I asked about that, and they didn't give me no answer. They just smiled. The man who's a good friend of mine who passed away, Martin Heiber. And about maybe 1982, 92, 102, yeah, about 2000, I was heading for the Fort Ronald Casino. And you head west from out of Sioux Falls and 29, and you 85 miles going that way towards the Yankton Sioux tribe. That sun was going down, and as I was going that way, I just was really thinking about something, because my life had changed at that time. I saw the same woman. She was dancing. I wasn't in a prayer situation. As a matter of fact, I must have had the Temptations playing, because I was really having a good time going down that way. And I looked down there and I saw this same woman. And that's about 20 years later, that from that first time I saw that woman again. I never saw her since. But she taught me that I did change my life, and I have the utmost respect for all women in the world, including the little girls, my granddaughters, the women in my life, my sisters, all women. I have the utmost respect that you teach us and are truly the centers of all our homes.
Because like even, when I go home, I say, there's a word, we of course, and I said, well, what does that mean? And then I said, well, that's a woman. You know that. You know what I'm saying? You know that. And I said, well, that's a woman. But, in reality, we comes from the sun. Wiyan comes from, the Wiyan means, when you look at the history of it and where the word comes from and the stories, where that comes from, Wiyan means the one who creates one cycle. 13 times in one cycle. Because the sun makes one rotation, but a woman creates life 13 times in that one cycle. Because, you know, when a woman has her menstrual, she creates a seed, so she's the creator of life. So, Weena means the one who creates life 13 times in 1 year. That's what it means. It doesn't mean woman. It means the one who creates life 13 times in 1 year. That's a part of our culture. That's our culture. That's our spirituality. That's who we are. So when they define Weena as a woman, all of those things get lost.
They used to tell a story that I learned that in the olden days, the men used to go out and hunt, and when they came back, the women would take care of them and mend them up and send them back out to hunt. Well, you know, after Columbus and everything happened, the men started going out to drink, and the women would stay home and they would patch them up, and the men would go out and drink again. Well, you know what? Eventually the women went out to drink, and there was nobody left to patch up the men or to patch up the women, but hiding in the closets were the children. And so, you know, women had to remember what they were and what their job was, you know, and that job was to remain sober, and it was to patch up the men so that we could let them take their place as warriors. You know, we're just learning that. The Northern Cheyenne have a saying that says a nation, you know, will heal to the degree that its women's do, and when the women don't heal, then the nation will no longer survive. You know, and people don't realize that, you know, the first woman buried in Arlington Cemetery was a Native American. The first woman to die in a foreign war, you know, as a combat soldier, was Native American. You know, one of the very first doctors to ever be able to practice was a Native American woman. You know, we've had a rich history. The first woman to ever address Congress and the President of the United States was Nancy Ward, who was a Cherokee woman. We have a rich history in this country as Native American people.
Which is what we refer to when we look at the earthworks, that those symbolisms, you know, and it's like even, you know, when people look at these mounds and they say, oh, those are burial sites, those are ceremonial sites. And I said, no, those are monuments to the importance of women. I said, those symbolize the belly of a pregnant woman. So when the Indian people built those mounds, they built those to commemorate, to always understand and to always remember the importance of women in our society, in our culture, in our world, in who we are as a nation, to remind us of the importance of women. And the people that were put into those, buried in those mounds, they were put back into the womb so that their spirit could be reborn on this earth. So those aren't burial mounds. That's our connection to our mother, Inimaka.
And then my grandma was kind of like the foundation for our family, and because my dad took me and my brother away from our mom, my grandma kind of filled in as my mom then, and she passed away like about a year before I left. And one day I was walking around and I was just noticing how lonely the place seemed after she had passed away, and I was just like, it just don't feel the same.
Well, my grandmother was the one that taught me. It was pretty rough growing up. We lived in Northern Ohio.
I was young, and my grandmother spent hours and hours by a lamplight, you know, a lamp, kerosene, log cabin, making my regalia, beating, you know. And she was old, but yet she done it. And she said, "Grandson, you better watch how I'm doing this, because someday I'm not going to be here,
And I would go stay with my grandmother, who was this really crazy lady. That's what I used to think. She was really a crazy lady. She's very eccentric, I thought. But she really wasn't eccentric. She was one of the first Native American women in the state of Ohio to be in the military. She did 33 years at Erie Ordnance Army Depot in Port Clinton. She obtained the rank of Master Sergeant. But I lived with my grandmother on the weekend until I was 16, and then I came to live with her permanently. So a lot of her teachings that she knew were all Cherokee. She didn't know the Ojibwa side. And so what she taught me was basically Cherokee traditions.
I have gatherings at my grandmother's house. And to entertain, she used to get all the grandmas and grandpas come over there, and we had to entertain them by singing for them. You know, while they ate and drank coffee and visited, we had to sing. Then they give us praise, or either that, they would sit down with us and say, well, here's a song you should sing.
My grandmother made medicine, so there's a lot of people coming in and out. Did a lot of native. I was raised in traditional home, as traditional as they could do in Ohio.